Hi, I'm Suzanne Siracuse. Welcome to Season 3 of my podcast, focused on the future, keys to building a profitable, sustainable, and impactful business. And I'm excited to be partnering with wealthmanagement.com on this. This series will focus on what firms need to embrace to ensure their growth and success for the future. And you'll hear from industry leaders and advisors on what is working for them. I have a great lineup of guests in store, and today I'm speaking with Kevin Keller, the CEO of the CFP Board. The CFP Board is the professional body for more than 104 CFP professionals in the U.S. Since 1985, the organization has set the standard for competent, ethical financial planning by upholding rigorous requirements for certification, including education, examination, experience, and ethics. Welcome, Kevin. Great to see you. Thank you so much for being my guest. And I have to say, you're a long overdue guest. So I'm glad to have you on Season 3.
Suzanne, thank you so much. I've valued our friendship over the years, and I'm looking forward to this.
Yes, me too. And I always like to kick off with the same question. And that is, how did you end up here, right? How did you end up working within the financial planning profession, and then specifically as the CEO of the CFP Board for a lot of years?
Yeah, thank you so much. Kind of my origin story. Well, I grew up on a farm in the Midwest and worked a summer during college in Washington, D.C., fell in love with the city, knew I wanted to return. And when I finished graduate school at Ohio State,
The
Ohio State University. I moved to Washington and went to work for a local trade group. But soon thereafter, I went to work at a professional membership association for corporate finance and treasury. I was there as the chief operating officer for 15 years or so.
Wow.
And then started at CFP Board on May 1st, 2007. And have been here ever since.
I love that. First of all, I love when people come from somewhere completely different and end up in like a city like Washington, D.C., which is such a great city. But it sounds like you really started in, gravitating towards more like professional organizations, and then ended up with falling into the financial planning profession.
Well, I don't know if it was falling into it, but yes, I have been in professional certification organizations now going back almost 35 years. So it was a move from the Association for Financial Professionals to CFP Board. I ran their certification program, much smaller. It's a B2B certification versus CFP certification, which I think largely is a B2C certification.
Absolutely. Well, you must be doing something right. You were there for 15 years. You're here for 18 years. So just an amazing track record. And in fact, you just announced you're retiring, say it ain't so, spring of 2026, after serving 19 years as the CEO. And first and foremost, congratulations. What an amazing run. It's not an easy feat to stay in a business that long, and this profession was really lucky, and still is lucky to have you in that role. You really took the CFP Board to a whole other level, and I remember visiting before the CFP Board actually moved to DC, when they were based in Denver. That's how long we've known each other. But I was going to some meeting in a conference room like 20 years ago, and it was just a completely different business model, experience, everything. And just to see all that you've accomplished in that time is really remarkable. Which gets me to my next question. You have a really interesting vantage point in this industry because of this position that you've been in, working with like a ton of advisors and firm leaders. So what has been the biggest change, or some of the biggest changes that have occurred from your perspective during that time frame? And have they all been positive?
What a great question. So first of all, when I came to CFP Board, I was the seventh person in less than 7 years to sit in the CEO's chair. So when I arrived in Denver, the first task was to move CFP Board from Denver to DC. So, it's been a long run. And when I arrived, here's how I would describe the ecosystem, if you will. The bulk of retail advisors were focused on investment management, gathering and investment management. And there has been a subtle but very real transition, especially in the last 5 to 7 years, to a focus on holistic financial advice. And that's one of the reasons I think that CFP Board has been so successful. We've nearly doubled the number of CFP professionals since I arrived. But I think it's because the focus on the delivery of holistic financial advice, and that business model has largely been adopted by every financial services firm, every advisor, large and small. Big firms want more CFP professionals. They're making a transition to delivering more holistic advice, but, a mass adoption, if you will, of financial planning over the years. I think that's the biggest change. I think that's a positive for consumers, for investors, because, people's financial lives are complicated and only getting more complicated through the years. And so to have an advisor who's looking out for not only investments, but retirement and risk insurance and estate tax planning is the future.
Kevin, I could not agree more with holistic advice. That being the biggest change that I've seen also from my time in this industry, which is over 25 years. And I remember when I first entered the profession in 1998, it was all investment management, and it was a real, people were head turning with the difference between how you were getting paid, so fee versus commission, and now just how many advisors couldn't even think about taking a commission now. And it's almost all turned to this fee only or fee based model. So, and the holistic planning piece is actually what's influenced a lot of that, I feel. Do you agree or?
Yeah, absolutely. I was at the NAPFA conference recently, and, they were were and still are a relatively small organization, but their concept of delivering holistic financial advice and the fee structure has changed equally as much as the adoption of holistic. And I think they're very closely related.
Yeah. And I always look at things from the lens of my financial advisor, right? So I've been using a financial advisor since I was in my late 20s.
Wait, a certified
certified financial planner. Yes, she is a CFP. She is a CFP. I love that nuance, right? You're always selling. I love it. But I can't imagine her not being involved in helping us she helped me find my accountant for my business. We are at the 1 yard line. I love a football analogy. We are at the 1 yard line of getting our estate planning documents signed. She found our estate planner for us. She has been involved in helping with long-term care, other types of insurance. So that whole financial picture, I think I couldn't agree more about your assessment of what's been the biggest change, and it is absolutely for the benefit of the consumer. 100%.
Yeah. And for folks, who are working in traditional jobs, employers are increasingly asking their employees to make more and more financial decisions, whether it's healthcare, retirement, et cetera, that are going to impact their long-term financial well-being. And so having the benefit of somebody taking a look at your whole financial life is a big plus.
100%. That I agree. So positive. Well, as we've kind of been alluding to, you and I have known each other a long time. And we worked together on a number of initiatives, especially when I was at Investment News. One real passion for us and our organizations was our commitment to highlighting the lack of women in the industry. And I remember how supportive you and the CFP board were when Investment News launched its Women to Watch Awards, which was back in 2014. And there were tons of CFPs that were on that list, that initial list. And while things have improved a bit, this profession is still having a hard time attracting the amount of women that it should have, right? And I know you have a special committee devoted to this and have conducted research around this. With all the talk about the need to attract more people to this profession, given the looming talent shortage, what advice do you have for firms that are looking to hire for the future? And what is the business case for being intentional in efforts in recruiting more women into the planning profession?
So you're absolutely right. And kudos to you for launching the Women to Watch. The first woman to watch, and the person you recognized was Alex Armstrong, one of the real leaders in the profession. We have been committed to increasing the number of women almost the entire time I'm here, but started in earnest in 2014 when we launched the Women's Initiative. We called it WIN. It was concurrent with the work that Investment News, and it was led by Nancy Kistner, an advisor at the time at U.S. Trust. She's now at Merrill Lynch Private Bank, but same organization. However, she raised this issue, and it was a real interest of hers. And we launched the campaign. And I'm proud to say that in 2024, we had the most new women CFPs of any year in history. However,
wow,
we had the most new men CFPs of any year in history. And so we're still struggling. It's about 3 men for every woman in the 104,000 CFP population. Women are growing a little bit faster, about 4.5% a year versus 3 to 3.5 for men. But it's still, there's a tremendous opportunity. The business case is, look, women control and increasingly are expected, our research shows, increasingly expected to control, trillions of dollars of assets in the future. And I think every firm is trying to figure out how do they get more women advisors. And so one of the trends that we're seeing, and firms, again, large and small, are making an effort to create jobs, not only for women, but for men as well, getting away from the original, call your friends, call your family, call your family's friends and everything, and the more traditional just dialing, but delivering advice, putting folks, creating jobs for people who can deliver planning and make a workplace that is a little more flexible. And we're seeing that increasingly, and firms are being successful, but the demand far outweighs the supply. And that's why we're continuing to focus on growing the number of women CFP professionals, even in 2025, and I know for the future.
Yeah, no, I remember when our Social Security reporter, Mary Beth Franklin, who was on your WIN committee, and I think still sits on the WIN committee. And those that are listening, I'm sure, know Mary Beth Franklin and her amazing knowledge around Social Security and healthcare. She was a longtime contributor for Investment News, a dear friend of mine. And I remember when she said to me and Jim Pavia, who was the editor for a long time, hey, I want to go get my CFP. And we thought she was crazy. We're like, well, you're not an advisor. You don't need to do that. She's like, if I'm going to be reporting on this type of content and working with advisors, I want to go through what they go through. I want to understand what it takes, et cetera. And I always had such respect for her and for anyone that goes through that certification process, because I know it's sometimes you don't pass on the first go round, right? And she really values how much that taught her and how she still uses it to this day.
Yeah, we love Mary Beth's contribution. She is an amazing writer. She explains really complicated things in a very understandable way. And she's made a great impact for us, providing advice and counsel, helping us think through programs and initiatives that'll increase the number of women CFP professionals.
Right, right. And also, I know the CFP board is partnering with somebody that I have such a great deal of respect for, Hannah Moore. I had her on last year, and she started the externship program. And it's really the amount and you guys are a big partner already for this summer program. 1,200 people that have registered, and almost 50% of those are women. So that is and it's a combination of students and career changers. So we're seeing the numbers in the future of those that are inquiring about becoming a financial advisor increasing from women and other underrepresented groups' perspectives. So just by you guys helping and being a partner to programs like that is just another way that you're really giving back to the industry. So thank you for being involved in that. And I think that that's a really good way that are getting this profession and how good it can be to join it into the hands and arms of women. So I know our country's demographics, speaking of women, our country's demographics are changing rapidly. So what do you think advisors need to be doing to really set themselves up for success in order to serve the changing needs of the next generation of investors? Because what they're going to want, we're already seeing it, is different than maybe the baby boomers and Gen X have wanted in an advisor.
Yeah, absolutely. And we hear the stories about kids inheriting parents' wealth and then changing advisors right away. One of the things that I'm seeing more and more are advisors are setting up not separate corporate entities, but separate offerings and services for the offspring and the young adults of their clients, so that they have a relationship already, and that the children are benefiting from holistic advice, perhaps delivered by their younger and newer advisors. So that's one of the things that we're seeing. But the changing demographics, as CFP Board looks ahead, it is our mission that as many people as possible, if not all, would have access to competent and ethical financial planning. And we feel it's important that regardless of one's racial or ethnic makeup, that they have opportunities to find advisors that they feel comfortable with. That's not saying you need to be a woman to serve women clients or be an African American to serve Black clients. It's just saying that we need to make sure that there's plenty of access, and we're working on that on an ongoing basis. It's no secret, as we sit here today, there are challenges to traditional programs to increase the diversity. But if you think about it, CFP certification, sometimes when I'm out, Suzanne, I get people who are frustrated with our efforts to increase diversity, and implicitly in their criticism when I'm out is that we're somehow lowering the standards. CFP Board is doing anything but. I mean, you have to pass the exam. You must complete a CFP Board registered program. You must pass the ethics background. So I think we're the ultimate equality across the board, but we want to make sure that the public has access to a diverse set of advisors.
Yeah, well, I applaud you for your efforts and standing true to that. Again, this isn't about exclusion, it's about inclusion. And when you have an industry that has been predominantly male and white, and it's more just about how do we include more people into this great profession. What a great career. And many of the externs, and part of that externship program that I mentioned, are from underrepresented groups. They're much higher percentages than we see in our industry currently. And that means they're curious about what a career in financial planning could be for them, and giving back to their communities, teaching them about financial education. All of those things are good things. So I'm glad that you continue to support those. And, other thing, like just what I think about when I'm talking to some of the guests on this podcast and in general in my consulting, I had John Jones on from Brighton Jones last year. And one of the really effective methods that they use at their firm, right? They do a lot in charitable planning. That's a real big part of their offering. And that makes it really easy to engage children of their clients. So their referral rate too is so high, and their next gen stats are really, really, doing great because of that charitable planning component. I think also too, impact investing options and the next generation is a little bit more, I would say, knowledgeable and curious about the investments and what companies are investing in, and they want that to align with their values. So I think that I'm seeing that as well. And just, from the planning standpoint, you can specialize in working with like the LGBTQ communities, the divorce communities, by getting these additional certifications after the CFP, obviously. But those are just, I just think it's making the industry and the profession so much more interesting and inclusive. And, it really all starts with that foundational piece that the CFP board is lending. So again, really appreciate all of your efforts around that, those initiatives. I always like to say many times we learn more from our mistakes than we do our successes. I know I definitely do. So I'd love to talk about what's a critical lesson that you've maybe learned more from, and that on something that maybe didn't go the way that you planned.
Well, I will finish 19 years next April. And, we've had a lot of successes, but we've done a few things wrong. Most recently, the one that got the most attention was as a part of our campaign to promote financial planning as an attractive career choice. And that campaign had a target audience, has a target audience of college-bound high school students and college students who've not yet declared a major. And last fall, we launched a campaign that was targeted at that group, again, college-bound high school students. And if you have children, you know that what's compelling to them may not necessarily be compelling to people who are more seasoned. And look, I think one of the lessons I learned was just the value of having a competent team surrounding and supporting the work that we do. For those of you
I remember
who may not remember it got a lot of attention. And it should have. In the end, we missed something on the front end. And I was in Peru, actually.
And you're talking about the ad campaign, right? You're talking about
the ad campaign.
Yeah.
It's two different campaigns. One campaign that we have, the big campaign, the public awareness campaign, that's on cable television, national broadcast TV. This is that very narrow, targeted campaign. And there were some images that got captured and spread around. And look, the team here, while I was in Peru, gathered together seasoned people who've been through issues before. We immediately took it down. We reworked the campaign and launched it. It's working. We're attracting people. We're building a database of names of people who might be interested in becoming CFP professionals one day. And I'm pleased with where we ended up, although the lesson was, the lesson was trust, hire good people and trust them to take care of it, because I was pretty much away from the store.
That is fascinating. First of all, I remember when everybody started talking about it, I saw like a bunch of different posts on Twitter, social media, then like the media was calling, do you have a comment? I was like, I didn't even see the campaign, but I'm not a financial advisor, so it wasn't targeting me. But it was definitely one of those things where everybody was talking about it. It almost went viral very quickly. And I had no idea that you weren't even in Washington, right? Like you were in Peru. Like I can't even imagine. Like, can you imagine those that are listening, like you've kind of like a big thing that's going on in your business and you're like, on Machu Picchu or whatever. And that's crazy. But I think the lesson that you took away from that is, look, nothing ever goes 100%, right? Like, all right, wrong visual, you fixed it, whatever. Like, let's go back to let's move on. But the fact that your team really were the ones that had to handle it on the ground because you were really out of pocket. I didn't know that, Kevin. And that must have really allowed you to feel comfortable to go away and maybe take a break sometimes, because I know you're always on. But that really is a great lesson for other business leaders to say, sometimes you need to have an event like that to prove that your team can handle it, right?
Yep, absolutely. And look, we're out there. I mean, I am fortunate enough to work for a board of directors that is willing to push the envelope and is to, go out and try new things. And not everything that we try works the first time. But I think we've made great progress in advancing the profession of financial planning through the increase of standards over the years, as well as increase awareness of CFP certification, as we've done through the public awareness campaign. And candidly, I'm really excited about our workforce initiatives that are targeted both at college-bound high school students, but at career changers as well.
Yeah, that's great. Again, you guys are doing so much to really try and get more talent to come into the profession, which is, if you look at the McKinsey numbers and the Cerulli numbers, and there probably is a lot more research that I don't even know about, it's really showing that we need to be doing things. So thanks for doing that and being a part of that. I also think like that lesson is great for those that are running a business and growing a business, to hear that not everything is going to go exactly the way you want it to go all the time. And it's really about how you respond to things when they don't go great. That proves who you are, and it really calls into task your leadership abilities. So sometimes when things don't go the way that they're supposed to, it's actually making lemonade, turning lemons into lemonade, or whatever that expression is, right? So I know we talked about that move from transactional and investment management to true holistic planning as like one of the big game changers, right? So what do you think the next big trend is going to be to really disrupt our profession?
Well, look, you can't talk about future trends and not have artificial intelligence right at the top of the list. And so it is something that we're focused on at CFP Board. In late June, we're bringing in the heads of technology from firms large and small from across the country. And we'll be engaging in a scenario planning exercise, thinking about the future and what might the impact be. As you know, I think most advisors today are using AI from a standpoint of making them more efficient, and that seems to be working well. I happen to have a Robinhood account. I watch my investments. I'm looking at the future about what is the client of the future going to look like. And so as we think about AI and the impact, it's going to be more, I think, than just efficiency. And we're looking ahead and trying to position CFP Board, position CFP certificates to be ready for that change.
Yeah, no, I think AI is even, I was at the Advise AI conference last year that's put out by Financial Planning, and it's all the content is around AI. And they had, 300 people that showed up last year, and it was a great conversation. Just in that time from October till now, the amount of advancement, the amount of discussion, the amount of companies that are launching that have AI products. It's, I think, becoming way more mainstream. It's going to become an assist to an advisor, not a replace to an advisor. It's really about, I think, advisors forcing themselves to get curious about some of the stuff and how it can help your firms and your clients. I know you guys put out a AI checklist guidelines for firms not too long ago. And I think there's a link that's going to be included to have access to that as well. So again, thanks for all your great work around that. I do want to give a little plug too, when we talk about there's so many events out there, but you guys launched the Connections Conference this is now going into its second year. And it's really marrying all of the different constituents that were members or doing business with some way, shape, or form the CFP board. And that launched last year. You're doing another one in early October?
Yeah, early October, and registration's available online at CFP Board. Suzanne, as you know, because you helped us a little bit on the beginning by doing some feasibility work, we had 4 separate small little conferences. We had our firms meeting, we had our registered program meeting, we had our meeting of the academics, and we also had a diversity summit. And that was 4 conferences of 250, 300 people or so for most of them. So we put those all into one conference because if you think about it, firms want access to the students, right? Diversity is an overlay across everything that we do. The academics want access to firms because that means funding's available. So it seemed like, look, the last thing we needed in financial services was another conference. Except there was nobody out there bringing the entire ecosystem that we work in, that talent pipeline from the supply coming from the universities, the academic foundational underpinnings, and then the firms that are the demand for the new advisors all in one place. And so thank you for the work you did to help us conceptualize it. Truth be told, we did this before COVID, and Suzanne wrote this report for me that sat on my left side of my desk there, as you see over my shoulder, for 4 years. But Suzanne, we're really pleased, and we think it's a unique setting. We had 150 plus students there last year. It just brings a whole different vibe. We had firms, and there'll be even more practice management and advisor-focused education at this year's conference.
That's great. Well, first of all, the Connections Conference, I loved working on that project. I'm so happy to see it all come together.
And you named it.
I did name it. I did name it. I don't know if people know that. I forgot about that. I did name it the Connections Conference. Yeah. All right. Yeah, there we go. So anyway, I wanted to give it a plug because I do think it's important to understand the various events that are out there to really help advisors get to that next level and be prepared for the future. So with that, the Connections Conference, right? With that in mind, I always like to ask the last question of all the guests. With the title and the theme of the podcast, focused on the future, keys to building a profitable, sustainable, and impactful business in mind. Kevin, what is your last line? What key takeaway do you want to leave with our audience?
Look, I think AI is the future, and we're only going to see more adoption of the technology. But I think we have to remember that financial planning is still about the people. It's a people business, and I see a future where continuing the best advice is digitally enabled and human delivered by a certified financial planner.
Well, that sounds like that's a fantastic last line. And it actually sounds a little bit like just a tagline or something. It's perfect. So Kevin, thank you so much for being my guest today, for sharing your story about how you got into the profession, all of your insights on what firms need to do to be successful now and in the future. And on a personal note, thank you for being a great leader in this profession and for being a great friend and supporter to me over the years, and just a lot of the key initiatives that are going to, I think, really be a big part of the growth trajectory of the profession. I'm Suzanne Siracuse. Thanks for listening. And I hope this episode leaves you feeling even more excited to be focused on the future.